Assassin's Creed, a game series that's done absolutely fantastic in most recent years and is prospering more than ever. However, let's run it back to the first ever game and see if I can beat Assassin's Creed without using the most iconic weapon, the Hidden Blade, and simply settling with my fists. Can I beat Assassin's Creed 1 without any weapons? The rules are very simple. I can only use my fists. No weapons of any sort unless the game automatically triggers them. That will make sense later on. But with the rules set out, let's begin. If you ever played this on PC, you'll know that I in fact did not begin, since my game looks like this.
I don't even know you people. Why are you doing this to me?
It was a complete laggy, unplayable mess, and it took me about an hour to do the little tutorial missions before I could leave to go and fix the problem. However, once I return after fixing the problem, I am rewarded by being launched away by Robert himself before having to deal with the janky controls during parkour. When I return to my village, I tell my master that it was completely out of my hands. At that point, Malik returns and says we're completely useless before Robert, who apparently followed us here, attacks the village itself. Our master beckons towards us and shouts and screams pointing at us. Luckily, Robert doesn't notice and we get to perform one of the most iconic scenes in this game. Diving into hay bales. With that done, we cut the logs and we are then promptly executed for our shenanigans earlier, and we're stripped of all our weapons and items. This is great since I won't actually be using any of them. The hardest part about this challenge will be the parts where I have to play as Desmond, not because I have to do anything, but because having to listen to dialogue I can't skip without any subtitles makes me want to kill myself. Sadly for me, even though the prologue is over, the tutorials aren't, since the game decides it's now going to tell me about intel missions, whether that's eavesdropping, pickpocketing, or interrogations. But after beating this guy and watching him get promptly executed, we are then released into the rest of the game, where we're told we need to kill 9 other men. I won't lie, I was completely surprised by the horse section, mainly because I forgot there was even riding horses in this game. But on my way to the target, I do a bit more nostalgia farming with the synchronization before making my way to Damascus. On the Save Citizen screen, I promptly died to my first fight, mainly because the biggest issue you have when entering combat is that you are forced to take out your sword. So every time I do the fight, I have to put it away. When in the city, you need to do intel missions before you can unlock the assassination memories. For this one, I decided to pickpocket and then interrogate. Altair after interrogation always kills the target, but since it isn't me doing it, it's completely fine for this challenge. How the fighting goes here is how fighting goes for most of the game. I grab people since when I do that I can't take damage, and I throw people so they take some. When I punch the target, it triggers the assassination since he's taken enough damage, and since I'm the one not actually inputting the assassination or hidden blade, it's allowed since otherwise the targets would never end up dying. Completely unrelated to the challenge, but I absolutely love the death conversations the main guy has with the people he ends up killing, since they make him think about what he's doing and slowly unravels the rest of the story. The guy also blatantly calls himself a Templar, but Altair is too thick and stupid to work that one out, so we're just gonna have to pretend that we can't solve that on our own. But with that, one of the 9 assassinations down without using weapons just yet. My reward for doing this is I get to play more Desmond. It'd be so much better if I could skip dialogue or at least have subtitles so I know what's going on. In this part, Desmond's simply told by the doctor that you guys need to help me get to 2,000 subscribers. You can do that by hitting the little button down below. Back as Altair, I'm rewarded with a weapon I can't use. In the first game, you're told to collect flags. There are a bunch of flags in different areas. I don't care about collecting all of them, but I'm drawn to them like a Minecraft YouTuber is drawn to children. On my way to the second city, I trample a bunch of people with horses, but since I'm not raising my blade, it doesn't break the creed. Obviously, trying to save this citizen goes as well as you expect, and this random guard is launched into space. I kill a bunch of guards in this area, but hide so I can get my health back, but clearly I missed one of the guards that was bullying the citizen, and they all respawn, so I have to do the entire area once again. I also don't remember the first game having destruction physics like it does here, but this was a nice surprise for me, also because it instantly kills enemies that touch them. My biggest issue in this game, however, was I didn't know where any of the intel missions are, so I had to actually sink most of the towers in order to find out where they spawn so I can then go do them. And any of the missions I found on my own were normally ones which required me to kill people, which I couldn't do since I couldn't use any weapons. But after an eavesdrop and a pickpocket, I get to meet one of the cooler villains, this doctor, who breaks a man's legs for trying to run away. And it turns out this man is a giant fan of Morrowind since he's been using the boots that launch you into space. Sadly for me, my camera angle here messed up and it ended up getting me killed. However, on my second attempt, a wall throw later and the second target is assassinated. And it's roughly taking me about an hour a target in this game, so it's taking a long time. That's mainly because the fights take ages since obviously I can't really kill anyone that quickly. I can't lie, at this point I was loving the game, the pacing was just right for me, and I was questioning why people always hated on how much it dragged. Obviously, I will change my mind on this later. But of the second target dead, we now have to go to the third city, which is the Holy Land, aka Jerusalem, where we get to reunite with Malik, the guy who lost his brother in his arm because we were impulsive earlier. This was my teaser into people saying the game's repetitive, since every interrogation has the exact same looking dude who starts off saying the exact same lines every single time. I do a collect the flags mission, which is a bit different, but because the controls are so janky, it's a bit harder than it needs to be. Assassination 3 is also pretty cool since we're lured into a trap before being made to pursue the target. The target runs the guard tower, and naturally I must perform my usual strategy of grab and throw before I punch the target once again to trigger his death. And like the end of every memory block and chapter, I'm rewarded by doing more Desmond and having unskippable parts of dialogue. And at this point, this is where the game's really going to start dragging out. See, a great thing about Memory Block 4 is that you can just fast travel to all the cities you've been to previously, so I start with Damascus. The only issue is that now instead of having to do 2 intel missions, we now have to do 3. But at least during this, the Informant challenge actually feels a bit more unique. Having that brief respite of enjoyment, my game decides to crash, so I have to do a lot of it all over again. And I can't lie, for this assassination, I just don't recognise this guy at all, but he does kill everyone at the pie. But to confirm to me I am in fact in a video game, these women run for help, and sadly that will never happen in real life. After chasing what I can only assume is Sterling's long lost fat ancestor, I got very lucky with the assassination trigger because otherwise I was going to die. I once again return to my master, who gives me a bunch of cryptic talks, and this doesn't make me feel like he's going to be the villain later on in any way, shape or form. In the next city I get my first Templar kill of the run, and I thought I was going to be able to open the chest, but sadly it did not happen, which really disappointed me. Like before, I couldn't find any of the missions, so I had to sink some towers, and it was worth it. I mean, look at this view. It was so great and so beautiful, and my character promptly killed himself knowing he'll never be as happy as he is right now. This guy for the interrogation wouldn't go into a private place, so I decided to just beat him in public, which is apparently allowed, and the guards just let it happen. I mean, I get the fact that we need to do 3 missions so the targets feel a bit more important, but my god, it makes the game drag a lot more, and it really slows the pacing down. After the intel missions, we go to see William and Richard talking at the castle, and the castle itself gave me PTSD from when I was 7, since I remember this was a terrible time for me. When in the castle, I can't lie, this table was my best friend since it stopped people just absolutely flooding me all at once. And I can't lie, I was surprised this assassination triggered on this because I did not think I'd done nearly enough damage to him, but if it hadn't done it, I once again would have died. But this is the point where the master tells us that we've been killing Templars the entire time, like this wasn't obvious to all of us but the main character, who is somehow still completely shocked by this revelation. Back in Jerusalem, this interrogation was the first time the man had a different face than all the others one previously, so that was a nice little change. However, this one guard did ruin my synchronization scene. The escort mission for the informer was new and different, but when the guy said he couldn't fight, I thought he would be quite bad at it, not that he would just cower on the floor every time people approached, which happened quite a lot. This assassination target I also don't remember, but the rooftop was once again my best friend, and like every target, it's just bashing off the wall and it leads to them being killed. With that, we're forced once again to unfortunately Desmond, where it's revealed we've been kidnapped by modern day Templars, which again is really obvious to everyone except the main character. We once again return to Akir, and we get the joy of another unique informer challenge, where we need to find a second informer, and they mention the word docs, which gives me PTSD. If you know, you know, and if you don't, you'll find out in about 15 seconds. I was just happy that the assassination still triggered in 3 intel missions, since I was scared they were going to go up to 4. But this target has extreme paranoia and is justified considering everyone he's worked with is dead. And if you want to know why I hate this area so much and why it gave me PTSD, here's just a quick little breakdown of a few of my attempts before it went well. But after dying to Warstra and some bullshit with the ladder, he does fall to one of the classic blunders of me throwing him into a wall and triggering the assassination. I am rewarded with more weapons I cannot use before returning to Damascus. And I can't lie here, I cut this informer challenge far too close. And the women that beg you and say they're sick and dying made this eavesdropping mission far too difficult because they kept crying about being sick and dying. But doing this pickpocket mission made us the quickest intel collection of the game so far, so you'd think I'd be done in this area quite quickly. The issue is this assassination mission has you hunt different targets. Only one of them is correct and it's always the same guy, but because I haven't played the game in 20 years, I don't know which one this actually is. After killing killing half of them and trying to sneak up on this one dude, one of the crying women from earlier softlocked me onto this bench. The guy clearly knows I'm the enemy and my guy just can't get up, so I'm forced to quit the game and have to redo everything all over again, including watching the unskippable cutscenes. When I find the actual guy, I go back to my usual tactic of throw them off the roof and then hit the target into a wall and a punch, and that will trigger the assassination. And with his death, there's 8 targets killed without using weapons. Once again, I'm forced to play as Desmond, but we're just going to pretend that doesn't happen since it's so boring. Memory Block 6 is the penultimate mission where we've got to hunt the bald guy from earlier, and unsurprisingly, it is in Jerusalem. The Informer challenges are by far the best thing to find since they're so quick and easy. I do fuck up the pickpocketing, and on my second attempt, this sick woman once again tries to ruin me. At this point, I'm concluded women just aren't built for me since they're just causing me endless problems. And the hardest part of the memory block was just trying to get to the intel missions themselves. I mean, there are 10 guards here blocking an easy eavesdrop that can get me done in just a few seconds. But we gatecrash a funeral with someone who definitely isn't Robert, and my first attempt goes awfully, and the assassination was awful, mainly because there's no ruse for me to throw people off, and I just get swarmed constantly and end up dying. My second attempt is just as bad, my third one is somehow even worse. On my fourth attempt though, I do happen to find a roof where I throw people, they will actually die. I was blessed with the fact that archers discovered the joys of friendly fire. After that, it's me and just definitely Robert and this wagon was my best friend since I could just keep knocking them off and deal a bit of damage. But even with my exploits, I do almost die to them. You can tell from this button mashing for the grab that I was desperate to get this over and done with. And like every assassination, I throw them into the wall and it triggers with a scuffed uppercut. But surprise, surprise, it wasn't Robert at all, and Altair is talking to a woman. And just like me, when women speak to me, they run away. And with that, we have to go hunt down the real Robert. We're told where to find Robert, and I steal this white horse for cosmetic reasons. Unfortunately, because I like to trample people, I ended up losing my horse and had to run on foot for the rest of the journey. The area to get to Robert is awful, mainly because you've got to kill a stupid amount of endless enemies. And unfortunately, unlike at the start of the game, I can't run past and just skip them. And I can't lie, if it wasn't for this cliff, I would have been here for a lot longer. I mean, just look at what's below me in this scene here. It is ridiculous, and it's even worse considering I can't just use a weapon. I tried to use blending to sneak past for some reason, even though I knew I wouldn't be able to skip it, and it just seriously backfired. When we get to Richard, we tell him that Robert is in fact a traitor, and he weirdly decides that we're probably trustworthy, but he's going to leave it into the fate of the Lord to decide. But the Lord was not on my side, since this cliff here is a complete lie, and there's actually an invisible wall stopping me from throwing Robert's men off. Like most fights, I thought my health would reset with a little cutscene before Robert fights me, but he just charges me in-game, which means I've once again got to just scuff this with almost no health. But like every single fight I've done and every assassination, I just throw him into a wall and punch him occasionally until he dies. On his death scene, unsurprisingly, we're told that there's actually a 10th big bad of the game, and it is our master. Of course, the bad assassin's the one dressed in black, and I just want to know what Ubisoft meant by this. Of course, before we can play Memory Block 7, we've got more Desmond scenes to play out. But once we're back as Altair, we return to the village, where we discover Al-Mulim has enthralled everybody. Luckily for me, the fight is right by this cliff, and I throw almost all of them off this cliff, before quickly telling Malik we shouldn't kill anyone unless we can help it. We confront our master, who decides that we have to go, and he makes us fight the 9 men we'd previously killed. Obviously, this was stupidly hard, and I did die a couple of times. It's hard because I've still got to do grab and throw, but a lot of them will grab break me and they have a lot of health. So all it is grab, throw and run away. When I beat it poetically, Robert is the last to fall, which I find was a nice touch. Also, if you didn't notice, they lose their illusion and you can see you were just fighting regular assassins the entire time. Now this part here was the worst. Al-Mulim spawns himself and a bunch of other clones to attack you, but they all have the strength of him with his grab breaks. This simply means that every time I grab break him, he normally breaks it. So if I grab him 10 times, only one of them will lead to a throw. And he does 2 to 3 hit damage every single time he hits me. And I can't lie, I was here for about an hour. I died a lot and I definitely had a mental breakdown. I physically remember screaming because it just wouldn't end. The only benefit is if you kill the real one, the clones will also die. The issue for me is my footage somewhat corrupted here, so when I killed the real one and all the clones despawned, While I have no footage, so you're just going to have to take my word for it. Now, I don't know if I got lucky and they hit him by accident at one stage, or if he triggers after taking one bit of damage, but I was just very fortunate after an hour of suffering that it was finally over. Before the final fight, I must do the hardest part of this challenge, which is listen to more unskippable dialogue. Looking back at my footage, about 30 minutes of the time I spent here, including that long 1 hour fight, is just listening to him waffle on repeatedly, telling me how we're fools and he will bring utter peace. And to bring utter peace, he decides that we must die. Now, normally with this fight, once you hit him, he will then trigger you to go down to 1 health and start teleporting and being invisible. However, for me, this just... well, it just didn't happen. I don't know if it's because I never pulled out a weapon or what, but essentially, I just kept throwing him and occasionally punching him, and he never left and he never did any of his tricks. Don't get me wrong, the grab breaks were still annoying. Like, it was happening repeatedly, and it took me over 10 minutes of just going through these animations. So I guess if you want a really easy way of beating him, just use your hands and don't use any weapons, and maybe it won't trigger. Or maybe I just got lucky after screaming for hours. But with a random throw and a camera angle change that gave me PTSD to the doctor killing me, I had assassinated Al-Mulim and the game was over, and I had officially beaten Assassin's Creed 1 without using a weapon.